Good afternoon and welcome to today's webinar. The title of today's webinar is The Importance of Benefits Management to YBS. Our speakers today are Paul Howley, Dominic and Dean Rowley from the Yorkshire Building Society. And I'm Merv Wyeth, I'm Secretary to APM's Benefits and Values SIG. Dean will introduce the YBS lineup shortly, but before we do that, I just wanted to give this webinar a little bit of context. So most of what we know about benefits management comes from the public sector. And in many cases, organizations treat benefits management as some sort of add-on or nice to have. And I would say that good practice is in short supply. So I was particularly pleased to learn that YBS have developed a robust cost and benefits framework. And cost is important here. So this has helped them to understand the true value of initiatives and I would say to invest wisely. It's a great story. I'm delighted they've agreed to share it with us today. But before we go too much further, let's find out about you, the audience. And here we're interested in what term best describes the main focus of the organization in which you work. Just as you start to do that, and we'll see the results, just to let you know, we've now got over 250 attendees on this call, which is great. So we can see from this word cloud that's forming what proportion of that we've got in terms of numbers voting and the different industries in which you work. So Dean, feel free to pitch in with any comments, but you can see that we've got a majority around construction and government.
It's fantastic to see such variety.
Quite a few from defence and engineering. So these are some of our traditional ones, but I can see financial services in there, and I've seen banking. So there's some home territory there for you.
Yeah, and some retail can be seen through this as well.
And we've got a good number. Please keep the information coming with Minty. There'll be some specific questions related to benefits management. So that's where the maximum learning will come. Okay, let's go on to our next question. And I guess many of you will have seen this before and responded to it. What we're trying to do is kind of understand the different role groups in which you operate. So the question, what type of project-related job role do you typically perform? And you can see there the leadership, delivery specialists, or business analysis and change, a PMO related or non-project. This is looking to me fairly typical, 50% in delivery, 11% so far within leadership roles, sponsor director, SRO, etc. And then the benefits management area, by and large business analysis, 9%. Any thoughts on what you're seeing there?
Yeah, I'm seeing a really good mix from a group I belong to. It looks a similar makeup of project delivery specialists and PMO related, but it's also good to see some leadership on this call, given that a lot of what we'll be talking about is benefits management from a leadership view.
Yes, yeah, absolutely. So a nice mix.
So thank you, everybody. Much appreciate you taking time out for joining us today. I'm Dean Rowley. I have the job title of Cost and Benefit Support Manager at Yorkshire Building Society, which you'll no doubt hear to us refer as to just YBS as an acronym going forward. Main aspects for me and my role is to make sure that, one, we've got a robust and continuously improving benefits management framework, which we've developed further to be a cost and benefits management framework in recent years. Two is to ensure that all of the processes in the framework are carried out in line with the defined standards and criteria. And also thirdly, to support YBS colleagues in all aspects of benefits management. Now, I participate in the Yorkshire Benefits Management Network, which is a local group of practitioners with many roles and many industries. And at one of our recent events, we identified it would be great to hear what more senior colleagues how they value and how they see our benefits management approaches. So Paul Howley and Dominic, who are going to be speaking shortly, came along, gave us a presentation. It was really well received, and a lot of the benefits management practitioners benefited from hearing how we at the Building Society have been able to manage benefits, but not just from my view as a practitioner, but more from a senior view. And that's what we'll be looking at today. You'll hear from their perspective as senior managers at YBS the importance of benefits management and the journey that we've gone on to get us to the position we're at today, and we're still on our journey. There will be an opportunity for Q&A that follows what Paul and Dominic say, and I definitely encourage you to take part, ask them questions, and let them give you perspectives on what's important to you. Now, before I hand over, I've got a couple of questions as well that I'm looking to ask you. Is what's your understanding of benefits management? So how would you rate your knowledge and understanding of benefits management? Got a nice scale to be able to see from there, and I can't see the mix, but I can see where it's landing, which is kind of middle of road, which suggests we've got some good knowledge and some I need to know more knowledge. Oh, there we go.
So what that shows you, as well as your average or median or whatever, where we are in terms of at the extremes, which I think gives us a better understanding. And I guess it's a bit of a tester in terms of this, because we're going to ask this same question later on. And let's see what the shift is. So a little bit of a challenge to yourself and colleagues, think.
But a nice good curve we've got there. And a final second question before you get to hear some of the interesting bits is, in your organisation, who owns the benefits? And again, this is something that will A, help Dom and Paul understand who you are, but B, help them pitch what they say to you in a way that shows we understand who you are. So a lot of people saying sponsor as the benefit owners. We are getting others, of course, the business and the project managers also showing quite strong.
On the same theme, you got SRO, and the CEO is there, which is great to see.
But there's a lot of variety, and I know this is free format, so it may not join everything up there, but it's good to see things like business owner, benefit owner, executive sponsor. A lot of the similar titles being used in there, but that's who you are. Now let's hear a little bit about our journey. So first up is Paul Howley. He is by job title our transformation director, but his role does involve him having many benefits management hats, probably some of the roles that you've just heard of. So I'm going to hand over to Paul now and let him introduce himself and YBS.
Thank you very much, Dean. So yeah, I'll introduce myself first, as Dean had just started introducing me there. So Director of Transformation, what does that mean? So in a nutshell, I'm responsible for all change at YBS, and that's everything from sort of lean process improvement all the way through to big complex projects and digitizing our business as well. So fantastic role in terms of fingers in every pie of all of the changes. So I describe myself as the luckiest person in YBS to have the role where we're just making changes to the way that we provide services to our members. And members is really important to us because we are a mutual, we're a building society, and as you can see from the screen there, we've been around for 155 years. It's coming up to our 156th birthday soon, and we're one of the largest building societies in the UK. And we're anchored around that purpose that you can see there, which is about real help with real life. And around a number of key areas there around a place to call home. So that's mortgages and buy-to-lets, social housing, and tackling homelessness as well, which is one of the charities that we're very active in. And financial well-being, so helping members save, and as we all know, that's particularly vital in the current environment as well. So whilst we are a financial services institution, the mutuality is extremely important to us. And so as we are a mutual, everyone in the whole of the organisation knows that every pound and penny we spend is our members' money. And that means, therefore, that cost management and benefits management become very important. In fact, they're crucial to us to ensure that we get the best value that comes for all of those members. Wanted to now introduce, what are we talking about? The cost and benefit framework. And as I said, we are a mutual, so that means that we have to be very responsible with all of the money and make sure that we're getting that best value outcomes. But if we go back to 2015, so you can see the bottom left of the graph there, we had a problem. It's very clear there. This is showing the forecasted benefits, and as project practitioners, we are all in the business of at the beginning of a year putting together our forecast of what benefits we expect. And as you can see there, in 2015 and 2016, we fell short of the benefits that we had told our board we would achieve. And I think that's not uncommon in many organisations, but we recognise that this was not acceptable, and therefore Dean and Dominic, but particularly Dean, I will blow Dean's trumpet here as well, in terms of actually setting up a benefits framework in 2017. And we're going to go through the details of that. Dominic will give a bit more of the specifics of that in a minute, but you can see some of the shift from when the benefits were implemented. So 2017, pretty much bang on the benefits that we had talked about. 2018, 3% higher than we had forecast, and last year 26% higher than we had forecast. And I, like you, have been around lots of organisations for in project management, and that is quite rare to see that level of benefits management. And it is down to the approach that we've taken. It's actually quite a simple concept. I say Dominic will take us through the details, but it is quite a simple concept. It is just, firstly, understand the benefits. Where are they coming from? Understanding the phasing of those, and then the most important bit is the holding benefit owners to account. And so we will take you through how we do hold all of those benefit owners to account. And actually, I can provide I can provide context to that, because as well as being responsible for all of the change management and making sure we're delivering all these benefits and all of the outcomes, I'm also a sponsor and a benefit owner. So I know how it feels like to be on the other side of the fence. And actually, I just earlier last week, I was in there presenting my project and being challenged by Dean and the team around all of those benefits, looking at the lifetime benefits of that project, where we were delivering what we were supposed to be doing. And that can be quite uncomfortable, rightly so, to be challenged by my own team if the benefits confidence isn't high. And that's the whole point of having this framework, is being able to ensure we can improve the confidence of those benefits being delivered. And we can talk about that a bit later as we go through the presentation, or indeed in the Q&A as well. So that'd be my introduction. I'm just about to hand over to Dominic, but we do have another Mentimeter question that we'd like to answer.
Okay, so just displaying that now. So people are aware we've now got 350 people on the call, which is fantastic. So we'd expect to see a fair few challenges that people face in managing and realizing benefits. So they'll pop up here and start to scroll as people enter those challenges. And again, Dean, Dominic, Paul, feel free to comment. I'm sure some of these will resonate with your own experience.
I think that's the interesting thing about going onto these webinars and seeing that we're not alone in the types of challenges that we face. Some of these that I'm seeing, particularly the one there on ownership, is one we think I'd say nailed. There's always going to be challenges around there, but we've come some way towards that, as Paul alluded to, and Dominic will say a little bit more. And again, the accountability is a similar one. The lack of ownership. These are some of the key things that we have addressed, and hopefully, as Dominic takes through this, you'll hear how we did it to see if it's something that you can apply also.
Thanks, Paul, and good afternoon, everyone. I'm Dominic Bird, and just before I talk about what we do and how we use it, I did just want to provide the context of benefits operationally in YBS. So I lead what we call the Change Management Office, which others would recognise as a PMO function within Paul's transformation team. And we're made up of 4 key services. So we have our operations team who provide fairly standard project support to our delivery teams, and also crucially act as our first line of assurance in challenging and holding our project teams to account for doing the right things at the right times. We have a reporting service which is really there to utilise our PPM tool to really keep track of and understand our project delivery performance. So everything from monthly status reporting, milestone tracking and MI, and resource demand and supply lines and any contentions or constraints that might be emerging there. We also have what we call our portfolio management and planning service, and that is really looking at the totality of our change portfolio, looking at the prioritization, both long and short term, and looking to align the delivery of our projects as they land, looking to iron out any constraints or dependencies, and feeding up the top level reporting up to ExCo, our ExCo and board. And then finally, but by no means least, we have the cost and benefit service, which is led by Dean. And as you saw earlier, we've been doing this really since late 2015. And more latterly, we've started to evolve this to take some of the key principles and methodologies that we've developed in benefits and start to apply those to cost as well. All of these services are entirely linked with each other. So there's nothing that happens in one that doesn't then affect or drive some change into the other. So we've absolutely got a team where the sum of the whole is greater than the parts. But the reason why it's so key, we believe, to have benefits within the CMO is that it is absolutely then part of our overall delivery focus. It's not a bolt-on or an offshoot to other elements. It's a key part of Paul's transformation world. So that's a little bit of background and context on how we're structured. We are here to focus on benefits, and what I want to do is talk a little bit more about how we practically use and apply our methodology. I'm not going to talk purely about the methodology itself. Very often we can see some fantastic models, but not necessarily seeing the outputs and how the theory translates into practice, and I do want to talk about that. That said, I do think that our framework is quite key. So I'll just take a couple of minutes describing what we've developed and what some of the key themes and aspects are that go through it. So on the left-hand side of the slide, you can see we have our change life cycle. So fairly standard. You recognise that from any number of change life cycle models. What we then also have developed and overlaid against that is an equivalent benefits management life cycle. So within these different stages, they summarise a set of activities and artifacts and engagements, just like a project life cycle, but which have different levels of detail coming to the fore at different stages. And throughout all of those stages, we've got 3 key themes that we really absolutely major on. Number 1 is sponsor engagement and their sign up to and taking accountability for project benefits and outcomes. It is their business case, and that is a fundamental premise throughout everything we do. And seeing the Mentimeter questions earlier, certainly sponsor came out very strongly, so that's great that we've got a similar theme there. We also focus very strongly on specifically what we call benefits owners and identifying who they are and making sure that they are accepting of their role to deliver the benefits. Now, the benefits owner and the sponsor could be different. They may be the same, but they could be different. And making sure that we've got that delineation, if there is one, is also a key part of our methodology. And then the third element is really the key artifact that drives pretty much everything else. So, and that is our benefits realization map and plan. And we create this in the identify and quantify stage, which is really why are we doing this initiative. And then we develop that through the stages down to line item levels of detail, describing the benefits, capturing the financial forecasts on a monthly basis, and non-financial benefits as well. So as we go through the process, we're always driving out additional detail throughout the whole process. Along the right-hand side, we've also got a number of key processes that run through all of those stages as well, that really underpin the benefits methodology. So we have monthly assurance. So whenever a project comes to our portfolio steering to request additional investment or looking for drawdown, funds to spend, we always run through, we look with a cross-functional panel to look at and assure that benefits realization plan, to understand the way in which it's articulated and whether it's actually capturing the right level of detail. And I will talk more specifically about this shortly. We have monthly realization tracking. So this is monthly tracking of the delivery of benefits from projects that may have closed down, but we're still looking for benefits to be delivered this year, possibly next. But also if there are in-flight projects which are beginning to deliver benefits as well. But crucially, that runs beyond the delivery project life cycle. It doesn't just end when the project closes up. We undertake quarterly confidence checks as well. So this is where we go out to benefits owners and we ask them to provide their levels of confidence in them being able to realise their benefits, again, on a multi-year basis. And that is then linked into our corporate quarterly forecasting process. So we're not running this as a separate activity, we are embedding it within what we do as an organisation in terms of our future year forecasts and corporate planning. And finally, we also undertake health checks. So we may ask owners and sponsors to come to a forum and give an overview of the general health of the benefits that they're looking to deliver. Again, could be both while a project is in flight or indeed once it's delivered, because the benefits owners and sponsors are still going to be there. We may target them if we see some particular risks happening with a project. If we see delivery timelines slipping, we may then look to bring a project in to really understand what's going on and what the risks to the benefits are. So that's our overall framework. And clearly there's an absolute bunch of activity, meetings, documents, analysis, etc. that drive all of this. But what I want to do now is start to show you some of the outcomes of all of this activity and how we use it. And what we'll start looking at is really the very tip of the visible iceberg that our portfolio steering or C-suite see. And I'm going to start on assurance. So whenever a project asks for funding, as I mentioned, there are two key documents that we will always look for. One is the business case, and the second is the benefits realization plan. And both of these are reviewed and assured by a non-project panel. So that's really quite key. This isn't me in isolation taking a view, neither is it the project giving their own view of how they feel they're doing. It's multidisciplinary, so it covers finance, procurement, architecture, we have business representatives, we have our assurance teams there, and we have IT. And this is what we get as a result. So what you can see in this project is the summaries of the assurance from the last two times it's come to our portfolio steering, December last year and February this year. And we're looking across both costs and benefits. And what we do is look for a range of aspects on, for example, how well the benefits are articulated. Have the benefits owners signed them off? Have they been signed off with the confidence levels that we would expect for that project, given the life cycle stage it's at? Are we seeing certain trends in the NPV that might make us draw some questions or challenges? Is there inconsistency in the narrative between what the business case is saying and what we're actually seeing in the benefits realisation plan? And having looked at all of that, we then apply a RAG status. And we've actually got 4 of these going from green, yellow, orange through to red. And they've all got some very specific defined meanings. So it's not just a subjective punt that the panel takes. We're looking for some very clear indicators and some very clear data points, if you like, that will then articulate what RAG status we would apply. And we'll also give a summary of what those findings are, what the actions are that we would then ask the project to undertake, and then actually at the top level, what we would advise the portfolio steering to do when the project comes forward for their money. This summary is then also reviewed by a number of in a number of other forums. So it's reviewed by a senior group whose members also sit at the portfolio steering, really to act as a bit of a check and balance to the assurance itself. Make sure that nothing untoward is going on, or that the right considerations are also being factored in organisationally. It also gives them a briefing on the sorts of points to be challenging the project on when we get to portfolio steering as well. We issue it to the sponsor, so it's important that they understand what the findings are and that they understand what some of the actions or next steps should be in relation to the benefits plan that their project has provided. And then finally, the RAGs and the key findings are fed up into both the portfolio steering and also up into our ExCo, who ultimately make the final decision on the funding. So what we see is an upward cascade of these findings based on a project's request for money, which in turn, those findings can then help inform the challenge and decision making around the project. And Paul, you, as you alluded to earlier, you've, as a sponsor, you've been on the receiving end of a number of these. Do you want to share how that feels?
Certainly, thanks, Dominic. Point out for those who are looking at this going, what you approved that with such a negative NPV. So I would point out this example here is obviously an infrastructure project. You know, it's a really good illustration of how you can look at this and look at the change over time of infrastructure projects or productivity projects or growth projects that we talk about there. And so you see the change over time. And so I, as a sponsor coming in here, I'm coming in multiple times there, and I'll be quizzed not just on the, are the benefits achievable? What's the plan for them? Have you signed them off? And going through all those kind of things. I'll be looking at the point in time change of those, and then being asked to justify, why has that NPV changed? Why have we not got the certainty because it's a bit further now on the costs and some of the benefits and the confidence and those kind of things. So whilst it's a very helpful and supportive process, it can feel quite an inquisition as well, because as I said before, it's our members' money. So we need to be sure that what we're recommending that our executive sign off in terms of funding is going to meet the benefits. And this process really helps hold people and sponsors and project teams to account along those lines. It can actually stop a project as well. So as Dominic was talking about, if that RAG status was a red and we felt that it was not safe to proceed or that we were not going to achieve the benefits, then this assurance can recommend to the executive that we stop a project, and we have done that. So it does have some bite, this, in terms of looking at the benefits and making recommendations up to the steering committees and our executive committee as well. Thanks, Paul. So yes, that gives a flavour of our regular monthly assurance on submissions, and this this activity then also links in with some of the other key themes that I mentioned earlier of our monthly realisation tracking and our quarterly confidence checks, which is what we'll move on to now.
So all of our signed off benefits are included into our corporate plan. So they're baked in every quarter based on amends, using the specific benefits realisation plans that projects have to complete. And that gives us our organisational targets that we need to achieve over a multi-year view. And that's, as Paul alluded to earlier, that's what our members then expect us to deliver. So what you see here is one of the sort of collation of that data, which gives us our view of benefits targets both this year in 2020 and also into next year as well. And what we then also do is we can build that up so we can understand which of the projects, which of the initiatives are contributing to those targets. And again, some of those projects may actually, some of those benefits may be being delivered by projects which have since closed, or it could be next year, for example, there could be projects that are in flight now, which we will see come on stream next year. And what we do every quarter, as I said, is we look to ask benefits owners and sponsors to provide their confidence, their view of how confident they are that they will be able to deliver the benefits that they have signed up to. And that we can then use to gain a sense of just where our sensitivities are in the this year, next year views, where we might have a project which is delivering a sizable chunk of benefits, but actually the sponsor is giving that, or the benefits owner is giving that a relatively low level of confidence. That might be because of the stage that the project is in. Early days, they might not have significant levels of confidence, but if it's towards the latter stages of delivery with a low confidence, that would have started to raise some alarm bells. Now, I know what you might be thinking, which is what's stopping a benefits owner saying that they are 100% confident of delivery to make sure that we don't start looking at them, or simply say that they're not confident at all as a way of avoiding responsibility for that, or avoiding sign-off simply. And in short, there's nothing stopping them doing that. But what we can do through the assurance that we've undertaken is highlight, for example, where the confidence levels are not where we would expect them to be or require them to be based on where the project is at in its life cycle position, or if those benefits haven't been signed off. We may also see, for example, that BAU budgets haven't been changed in order to factor in cost savings potentially when they should have been. Or if we know that there are delivery risks that are going on with the project that could impact the future delivery of benefits realisation. And again, we can escalate all of that as part of the funding requests or as part of our reporting to our C-suite. And it can also prompt a project-specific benefits health check. So we might see some alarm bells or some inconsistencies in what the project is reporting, or we might feel that we've got a particular exposure to a project which are delivering a high level of benefits, but maybe with a low level of confidence, and we might drill into a specific project to understand what's going on there. Based on the data that we have, we can also go more granular again. Within the benefits plans, we drill down at, we require projects to have monthly run rates so that we can see absolutely and bake into our quarterly corporate planning process when benefits are due to come on stream or when we might see uplifts in benefits. So again, we can use that for a number of different purposes. We can use that to look at some early reviews of projects. We can put projects under scrutiny well in advance of when benefits might be coming on stream to make sure that they still are they're still on track. What we also do is we also make it more personal for the benefits owner, which they may or may not like, which is we can look at the level of benefits in pounds that each benefits owner within YBS is due to deliver. And based on our multi-year view and based on the levels of confidence, we can see whether the benefits across the board that they're on the hook to deliver are actually likely to be delivered or not. And again, that can drive a more individual scrutiny on the benefits owner to understand what their range of projects are that they are accountable for, and what might be going on in those worlds. So we can see, for example, owner 2 in 2020 is due to deliver best part of over 5 million worth of benefits, but actually the lion's share of that is at a low risk of confidence of delivery, and actually very little is at a high level. So that might prompt some questions and some scrutiny on those initiatives, and that gets even worse in 2021. There are other owners that you could pick out which are sort of more positive. So owner 10, we like quite a lot, because they're delivering some fairly sizable benefits, and that's all looking pretty good. But again, we would want to understand and track those projects that are delivering those benefits to make sure that nothing goes awry and then jeopardizes some fairly sizable chunks of benefits both this year and next. So clearly these summary analyses are underpinned with months of data and process and procedure, and quite frankly blood, sweat and tears, not least of Dean's. It hasn't happened overnight. It's the result of years of development, refinement and hard work. But because of its success, and looking at the slides that Paul initially presented, where we've seen a real upturn in our delivery of benefits, we're now beginning to evolve this into how we can apply these to costs as well. So it may be very obvious, but it's something that we've only really been focusing on significantly since last year, and how we can improve our estimating and manage our variances by using some of these methods and practices in that space. We're also evolving as an organisation in that we want to, and are increasingly moving to more agile project delivery. And while many of the principles of benefits management are really pretty much the same, there are some key differences that's prompted us to look at how we manage agile benefits. And that's what this next slide starts to illustrate. So I'm not going to cover agile, but clearly there are some differences to waterfall which we need to account for. So, for example, the way in which a benefit or an outcome may be delivered can change perhaps more fluidly in agile through sprints and backlogs, while the overall benefit target may remain the same. So we needed something that could provide greater flex to be able to account for these changes. And what we found was that having a greater focus on the delivery of the capabilities by the project, which could be used by the business to deliver a range of benefits, really helped us to tease those two things apart. So the business had a range of benefits that could be delivered only if the right capabilities were in place. So what we developed was a tool that split those in two, and then actually crunches them back together again. So we would look for the business to articulate the key outcomes, the key benefits that they are expecting their agile project to deliver. And we then asked the project to articulate what the capabilities are that they are looking to land, which they believe that is in their scope to progress. In itself, that isn't enough. We then needed to facilitate the bringing of those together, both the outcomes and the capabilities. And what we found was that there were, in a number of cases, gaps. So there were both capabilities that the business didn't want, that the project was progressing, and benefits that the business was expecting to deliver, but had no capabilities that were lining up to deliver those. So that ability to bring those two elements specifically together, and in some cases have a number of capabilities that would support the delivery of an outcome, was really key, and enabled us to establish a tool that was far more real time in terms of capturing and creating views of capabilities and benefits, developed a map which we could use to report up exactly what the expectations were, and also therefore what the priorities were for the project. And we could also see what the gaps and risks were against our targets as well. So on this slide is a raft of data which is entirely interactive, push button, against which we can cut the data in different ways. We can cut it by benefits owner, we can cut it by capabilities, and actually use it to drive out the actual run rates. And the beauty is, if you update it in real time, all of this then gets washed through, and you can see what the changes are to the project if you want to swap out some capability for another through a sprint or through a backlog adjustment. So you can see real time what's going on. And our conclusion here is really that I guess what's good for Agile is actually pretty good for waterfall as well. And we want to look at how we can increasingly apply this and use this within the more traditional waterfall territory as well. So that covers all of my key elements. I think we do now have a question just to really seek some thoughts from you, the audience, really, which is what could be done to improve benefits management at YBS? What are the tricks that we're missing? What are the things that we should be focusing on to enhance this further?
Yeah, because this is a great slide for us, or a great question for us, because we are, as I said in my introduction at the beginning, looking at continually improving all that we do for cost and benefits management. So having other people's input is invaluable to us. So appreciate people taking the time in doing that. Some of the things that are coming through there, we do on non-financial benefits. Maybe we can cover that off within the Q&A, because yes, we report a lot on the financial numbers, but we do manage and track non-financial benefits. Yeah, we do probably need to do some more on that. This is some good stuff. Thank you, everyone. This is really useful feedback here. That's what I'm taking it as.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we've got a few questions that we'll get to. Some of them are around the software. We've got one around number of initiatives, etc. But let's get to those and push on then to the next one before we get into Q&A. And you'll recognise this question. Having heard from YBS, how would you rate your knowledge and understanding of benefits management? So you may recall the average on the previous one, and this is going to be the appraisal really in terms of has knowledge and understanding been improved.
Pleasingly, given the scores at the moment, it's moved from 2.9 to 3.3.
Absolutely. So I think that's a positive. And we've got a lot of people that have fed back on that. So I think in terms of the learning that's taken place, I think we should be very pleased with that as we move into a Q&A. So I put the names and faces up there, the contact details. If you route your contact via Dean, then that would be helpful. And there's an email address there. So thank you very much for that. Dean, we're going to direct questions through yourself. I think that would be the kind of tidiest way that we do things. So here's one from Chris. He's asked us a few questions. This one was, how do you avoid double counting benefits?
It's a very good question. Dominic, do you want to take that? Because that probably fits more into the process side of the assurance and the reporting.
Sure. So there is always a risk, and it's something that comes up fairly frequently, certainly in the more senior reviews of benefits and the assurance that we've done. So on an individual project basis, we do rely on the assurance panel to, I suppose, challenge the project as thoroughly as possible on the source of their benefits and what the key drivers are. And I think one of the key sort of observations I'd make from our entire process is the importance of having our finance team in and as part of the process is key, because operationally they have such an oversight of not just the project world, the change world, but also BAU budgets, that actually they are a very key ally in helping ensure that the assurance is as robust as possible and is trying to siphon off and weed out any potential double counts that might be being applied into BAU budgets, for example, if the benefit is particularly a cost-saving one. So I think the strength is really in the number of levels of assurance that we go through that panel, but then onwards up through the portfolio steering and up into ExCo. But is there a risk that it could happen? Yes, there is, absolutely.
I think what we do with benefit owners as well, Dom, is, by making a benefit owner sign off to the realisation of benefits in their area, it's their responsibility as much as anybody else's to make sure they only sign off what they can realise. And by putting them on the spike, it does stop a lot of opportunity of double counting.
It does. It does. I agree.
I hope that helps, Chris.
Yeah, I think that does. It leads me perhaps to another question. I think this might be from Chris as well. How do you deal with the change of benefit owner after, say, a reorganisation or a job change?
Well, Paul, I'll let you answer that one as a benefit owner who's actually experienced that.
I have, yeah. So we don't let that new benefit owner off the hook, because clearly what we've got there is, we have somebody has signed up to a science of how that benefit is calculated. And so, yeah, I've both received benefits that have been agreed by someone else, and I've also given benefits away to someone else, exactly as we just described there. So I would be expected to sit down with that new benefit owner if I'm handing a benefit over to somebody, and it would be facilitated by Dean and the team in terms of an understanding of, these are the benefits that are committed. Here's the phasing plan of that. They then expect me to provide my level of confidence based on that. So as a new benefit owner, I can reappraise that and say, well, previously, the benefit owner was saying it was high confidence. I think it's only medium confidence for these reasons, or vice versa there as well. So there is a handover process, but I am still on the hook for all of those benefits. I can't then deny all knowledge of those. So it is still my job as the new benefit owner to, by hook or by crook, make sure I can achieve them.
Okay, thank you very much. There's a couple of questions here around how you deal with non-financial benefits, or how you go about monetizing benefits. So yes, over to you, Dean.
Yeah, I'll take that one on the chin, because it falls under my remit. We haven't got to a place yet where we have a monetary value attached to something that's not cashable. So our financial benefits are simply costs that we save or money that we earn. And whilst we know that an improvement in customer satisfaction will drive a financial benefit of sort, it's really difficult to quantify, and we've not yet mastered that. We're always on the lookout to trying to improve a measure of value, some way of getting that common currency, so that non-financial or non-cashable benefits have a financial value attached to them. We haven't got that yet. We're not that mature. That said, we do track non-financial benefits. We do have non-financial benefit owners. They are reviewed as part of any business case submission, and we do make sure, particularly if a business case is being predicated on non-financial benefits, that we have at least a reasonable understanding of the level of risk that we are avoiding, or the regulations that we will be complying with. So we can't sit here and say we're great at non-financial benefits in terms of translating it into financial value, but we do have a process of capturing, recording, and having a degree of ownership for non-financial benefits.
I mean, I'd also add to that, Dean, and sort of from a sort of overall PMO function perspective, that those non-financial benefits can still play quite a key part in helping us to prioritise our portfolio and our change initiatives. So it comes back to my description of the CMO function earlier on, which is what goes on in benefits, in the world of benefits, actually could be very applicable and sort of affect what goes on in our portfolio planning and management side as well. So Dean's right that we're not perhaps as mature there as we would like to be, but there's certainly still areas where understanding those non-financial benefits can play a part in helping to understand the priorities within the portfolio of an initiative or any dependencies that it may drive.
Okay, thanks very much. Probably got time for a couple more questions. So one I think is a clarification around your CMO. So the question here is changes are typically delivered as projects. How does the CMO link to a PMO? Is the CMO more of a definition and assurance function?
Dominic, I think that's right in your territory.
Probably for me, isn't it? So the CMO, we've called that change management office really to reflect the breadth that we look to try and provide, which is not just some of our big initiatives, but also some of the having oversight of some of the early pipeline of change as well. So from the business incepting or coming up with ideas and it going through the process of development and so on. But yes, I think there is certainly, I think if you look at what we do, there are elements which are broadly recognisable from a majority of PMO functions that you might see. But we have certainly taken more of an assurance slant over the last period of time. So not just the cost and benefits, but also we've reconfigured our ops team to be more first line of assurance rather than just purely providing project admin support or so on. And we're evolving our reporting function as well, again, to not just be a case of providing project status reports or so on, but to really scrutinise for example, the resource demand and supply that we have within the organisation, and looking to challenge projects and understand where we might have contentions or resource constraints. So broadly speaking, I'd say recognisable as a PMO, but yes, we do want to be operating absolutely at the strategic portfolio level, challenging sponsors, challenging our C-suite to be making the right priority decisions, while also providing some at the coalface project delivery support as well.
Thank you very much. I think we just got time for one more, and I was just showing some of the reflective practice here, but one I saw there was bend the ear of the C-suite, which I thought was quite apt, really. But obviously they're picking up on the level of involvement that you, Paul and Dominic, have. There is a question around software tools, particularly around kind of tracking and reporting on the benefits and at the portfolio level. So Dean, what tools do you use?
I'll refer to Dom to answer some of those questions. So it's from an individual project level, as part of assurance, we use a very simple Microsoft Excel. What we don't want to do is duplicate the information that's contained in our portfolio management tools, which we use. We use Cyforma, which I'll pass on to Dom to answer more on the Cyforma. But predominantly we use Excel for looking at information and reviewing it, but the records are kept in predominantly Cyforma as a portfolio management tool. But Dom, if you want to expand on that, because you know more about that than I do.
We use PPM tool, and that's a key area of our focus as a CMO function in enhancing how we use that and the range in which we use it. So it has over a number of years been used very much just as a sort of simple, capture of cost and not much else. But actually, it's like revving a car in first gear, really. And what we've been looking to do over the last 18 months or so is really increase the utilisation of that tool, so that it can support not only benefits and business case creation. So we actually use it now to create some of the graphs and tables that we use in our business cases, but also, as I alluded to, using it much more proactively in understanding our resource profiles, our resource constraints, where we have insufficient skill sets against project demand. So wanting to use it much more as a sort of single source of the truth, really. And I think it's one of those things that probably gets less focus than it should in the industry, but actually when you start to use those tools properly, there are some significant benefits to be had. So I'm an advocate of them.
Thank you very much. So we'll move towards a conclusion now. Thank you very much for that. I think you've more than exceeded my expectations, and the reason why I wanted to bring this story to people in terms of a good example outside the public sector and where you move beyond benefits to talk about value. So thank you for that. People have reported increased knowledge and understanding. There's some great ideas for improvement though, and also people are now reflecting on what they've learned. So I think you can expect quite a bit of feedback. Thank you very much for your time again today. So once again, a big thank you to Dean, Dominic and Paul.
Thank you, everyone.